Hello, my name is Noella Seidu and this is Law Express. Sometimes the court makes certain orders to protect people in domestic situations or settings. Today on Law Express, we'll be discussing one of such orders, which is protection orders. We'll go for a quick commercial break. When we come back, you meet my co-panelists for the discussion today. Don't go away. This is Law Express.
My mother passed on to me an age-old moisturizing secret handed down from generation to generation. Shea butter has been and still remains the ultimate and trusted natural product for the skin. It is safe for all, including newborns. I use Violon Shea butter products for my hair and skin and for all my children right from birth. Violon Shea butter is an amazing diaper cream. I love my family. That is why I trust only Violon Shea butter products for our skincare needs.
Violon Shea butter. Feed your skin right.
Our guest for this week. Joyce Franklinado is a legal practitioner. She also likes reading, solving word searches and puzzles, and swimming. Osman Al Hassan is also a private legal practitioner. Current affairs and football are his interests outside the law. Noella Seidu. She is a private legal practitioner and a consistent member of our 3-lawyer panel on the show every week. She plays a dual role as a host of the show. He likes to play tennis and read.
I think that we have a lot to do today because protection orders are quite broad. Because in a prior episode we already discussed what domestic violence in itself is, and we've talked about the fact that, look, you could go to jail for that, it being an offense against our law, you could be fined or both, and of course there could be other orders including compensation and then occupation and protection orders, but today the focus is on protection orders. What then is protection orders?
So protection orders are basically orders available to a victim of domestic abuse, and it's granted by a court to prevent the person who is abusing you from further abusing you or threatening to abuse you. It doesn't necessarily just apply to you being physically harmed by the person. There are other factors that constitute, that allow you to seek protection from the court, such as where you are being emotionally abused, verbally abused by the person, where you live together with your husband. Today your husband decides, you know what, I'm tired of my wife. I'm going to threaten you and say, I am not paying rent for this month. You're sitting down wondering, where am I going to live? Where am I going to get my next meal, etc. You can apply to court because that is a threat that your husband keeps throwing out at you. Therefore, your available remedy is to go to court and say, look here, I am in this situation. I am married to a man. I'm using a man and a woman, for example. I am married to this man. He constantly hits me. I fear for my life. I fear for the well-being of my children. Therefore, I need the court to come in here and help me by protecting me, by preventing him from continuing to carry out these acts against me. So it's basically where you want the court to protect you. Then you go to the court and ask for them to protect you from the person's harm.
So if I get you right, you're basically saying that the protection order is aimed to prevent a person from carrying out threats.
Yes.
Okay, or continuing with abusive behavior meted out to a victim. But then there's another aspect of it, which is also the people associated with the one making the threats or who is engaging in the abuse. So the order would also cover people associated with this abuser and also cover people associated with you as the victim. So with your example of the household, if your sister lives with you and it affects her as well, your order can cover the person as well.
Yes, so the order can protect my sister if she's also a victim of the abuse. Aside the fact that the order is going to protect her, like Noella rightly said, my application is against my husband. Let's just say it's against my husband. What if my husband has a friend who joins him in attacking me? The order can also protect me from further abuse from that person, or further threats of abuse from that person.
Or both of them.
Or both of them.
So now you have established that you're under threat. We've established that, yes, you need to have some kind of domestic relationship going on to come under this situation or this law. Where do you file this application?
You file this application in a court, any court with original jurisdiction.
Now you're talking law.
So you have to go to a court, but you have to go to a court where either the attacker resides, carries on his or her business, or is employed, where the domestic violence occurred, or where the respondent, that is you, the person who is being abused, where you reside, where you live, where you work, or where you carry out your business. You can go to any court in that area and apply for a protection order.
Now, there are certain times the act is so urgent that if you make application to the court for the order of protection and you want to give notice to the other party, the required time that you need to do so might end you in the grave. And so you can go, when we say ex parte, you go without the other party to the court and complain. So the court will give an interim order protecting you while now determining the substantive matter, domestic abuse complaints that are pending.
I think we need to explain this ex parte situation more to a viewer who probably doesn't know how, court proceedings carry on. Every court process that is filed, ordinarily, whoever is a party to it, so if you are one of the people named in that court process, the rule is that usually you should let the person know by giving the person a copy of what you have filed to say, this is my case, this is what I want against you from the court. So where it's ex parte, it means that you are not required to let the person know even what is happening.
Yes.
So it's normally with agents and exceptional circumstances.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So basically, if you are going to court for a protection order, like Osman rightly said, you can go without informing the other party that this is what you intend to do. However, there are certain circumstances whereby the court will actually require the presence of the person who is being accused of attacking you to show up in court. If you go to court and you file that you've been attacked, you want the court to grant you an order of protection, the court has to listen to you, has to hear your case and grant that protection where it is right, within 14 days of you having filed the application. In such circumstances, an interim order is granted to protect you, protect people who are associated to you, your friends, your family, your children.
Basically, an interim order is a temporary order.
It's for
and it
3
usually
months.
lasts for 3 months. And sometimes, if there are no other proceedings, it might just end there. There are times that it could be extended into something more permanent. But then again, usually because interim orders are granted without hearing the other side, it is an opportunity for the other party who this order has been made against to come and then give his side of the story, probably to set it aside. So it's normally an agent's intervention by the court, which could be made extended to become more permanent, or could be set aside upon hearing from the other side, since you came in without him.
Yes, so following on from what you just said, once the interim order is granted by the court, the person who has been accused of having attacked you, the 3 month period that the interim order is given, you're given that time to come and defend yourself, whether the order should be set aside, whether they should actually extend it. If you fail to show up within the 3 month period, it will become a final order, and that can be extended for 12 years or more. It depends on the circumstances of the case.
Let's diffuse some impressions here. You see, domestic violence always have a connotation that some woman is suffering. Please, the men too are subject of domestic violence. And it is not only women who can go for that application, court protection orders and all that. Men, if you are suffering, apply. The court will also protect you. Now we can go to the court proceedings.
So mostly with these proceedings, they are held in private, in the presence of just the people who are vital. So that is the parties, their lawyers, maybe some witnesses. But it's important that because of the way this could be, it could arise from emotional abuse or something. So if the presence of the alleged abuser would affect how the demeanor or like the proceedings in respect of the emotions of the victim or witnesses, sometimes the court might say, okay, let's separate them. Let them come at different times to give their various evidence, just to help diffuse the situation and then make for a more peaceful and productive sessions.
Yes.
Now, when we say apply to the court, usually the court has rules that you apply. And it's not a letter you write in your private home and address it to the judge, please. It is an application in the form of what is recognized by lawyers. Application is always done by a motion and then what we call an affidavit, which is something you will have to swear on the facts that you are stating to convince. And once it is sworn, this is supposed to be done by a lawyer, not necessarily a lawyer. If you can't do it, the law permits you to do so. But this is the work of a lawyer. You need to see a lawyer to make that application. But if you can do it by yourself, you just do it, or you see the registrar of the court. Sometimes they guide you to do a motion, an application, affidavit, and then you bring your evidence before the court for the court to. And the moment you swear an affidavit and you make statements on oath, that becomes the evidence, unless the other party now come to counteract it.
Yeah. You could also go to legal aid where you need a lawyer.
Exactly.
And legal aid is a statutory institution that is there to support people who cannot afford legal services generally. So this is one of the instances where perhaps you could go to the legal aid commission, and if you qualify and your case is taken up, then you could be assisted by the lawyers there who are dedicated to supporting people who are not financially blessed like others. Probably we should now talk about the report itself. When you report to the police, what they do.
Yes.
Once that is done.
Well, so it means that the court is not the only avenue where you seek protection. You can also go to the police, and when you report to the police will give you protection if you need it. The police will have to take your complaint. If you are already hurt, they will take steps to assist you. If you need medical attention, they will take you to the hospital, give you a form to fill, make you feel comfortable. And within a reasonable time, they will have to hand you over to the courts to deal with you, especially the one who is the culprit of your situation.
So it's important to state that the court does not just take your story as you present it as good news and then just move with it as the gospel. They would have to also check. And this is where social inquiry reports come in, and some psychological reports may come in. So the courts may assign people from the social welfare department to go into your neighborhood to check, whether your story is true and whether the facts you've given actually check out, so you don't go and lie against somebody to be able to get protection orders. So it's important to let our viewers understand that the moment you come to court with an application, with or without a lawyer, automatically the judge wants to get to the bottom of it. Apart from the witnesses and all that, the judge may choose to invite people, these psychologists and others, to come in. I know Joyce wants to come in to continue with the actual scope of what protection order is, but we have to go for a quick commercial break. When we come back, we can carry on to discuss what really is a protection order. What does it do? What does it prohibit? What does it allow? Stay tuned. This is Law Express. Don't go away.
My mother passed on to me an age-old moisturizing secret handed down from generation to generation. Shea butter has been and still remains the ultimate and trusted natural product for the skin. It is safe for all, including newborns. I use Violon Shea butter products for my hair and skin and for all my children right from birth. Violon Shea butter is an amazing diaper cream. I love my family. That is why I trust only Violon Shea butter products for our skincare needs.
Violon Shea Butter. Feed your skin right.
When we talk about a court order, it's always trying to stop or compel something by force. You know, under normal circumstances, you cannot force someone to do something or to stop something. But the courts can do so, and they do so by the order. So when you now apply for a court order because of your situation, because of your abuse, we have emotional, we have economic, we have physical abuse. When it comes to emotional and economic abuse, sometimes it's not positive. The person is just denying you something. Let's say your husband doesn't want to have sex with you or your wife doesn't have sex with you. Can the court order that? We will come to those dynamics. But here, our focus is on where the court stops you from, let's say, doing something that harms the person who is complaining or the applicant. It could be a threat, it could be a physical act, it could be an economic. If it is a positive act, the court uses the order to restrain you from continuing with that thing until the matter is determined. If the matter is determined and it finds that the person still needs protection from you, then the court makes what we call the absolute order.
I'm sure we're all wondering some of the orders that the court can grant to protect you. For example, if you have a stalker, a stalker is somebody who follows you, wants to know everything about you. It applies both ways. We women do it sometimes. What's my husband doing? What's my husband doing? The man, you can apply to the court saying, I need this person away from me. And the court can actually say, I don't want this person to come within 50 meters of you. So if I even feel you breathing behind my back, I can run to the court and say, hey, person is near me, run away. Also, some people go to where I work. Why are you coming to my workplace? If you want to abuse me and you're doing it at home and I'm running away, don't come to my workplace. So the court can say, you know what? Stop contacting this person by telephone. Don't call my phone. Do not send me a text message. Do not visit me at my parents' home, at my workplace. If you know I go to church on Sunday or Wednesday for weekly vigil, don't come there.
The court could also prohibit the person from forcing the applicant to engage in sexual contact.
Yes.
And this could be where perhaps they still live in the same space.
Exactly.
Or there's that situation where you are bound to be alone together. That does not mean that if there's consensual sex, it is not allowed. So it speaks specifically to some situations. So here the courts will specify that forcibly trying to get sex from this person is forbidden. There could be others that have to do with maybe damage to property. So there's a problem in the domestic setting. You have a big issue with your brother or your sister or your parents, and then you destroy their car, you burn their clothing.
Or even their house.
Yes.
You throw stones at the windows.
If the person feels that you have that capacity to do that, or you have the tendency to act in ways that suggest that you can follow through with these kind of threats, the victim can apply for this kind of order to shield them from you carrying on that act to deprive them of their property.
You see, the order can also contain conditions. The conditions of the order could be that relocate from a certain position. Let's say if you were living close to the complainant or the applicant, and the complaint is about your threat of harm, physical, emotional, or economic, the condition of the order could be that relocate. The condition of the order could also be that perhaps you are holding something belonging to the person and is depriving the person of the use of that thing. So the order can say relinquish it to the person. So the conditions of the order is very important. The court must specify what you don't have to do, and that specification will have to relate to the complaint of the applicant. And when that happens, how do we enforce the order? We know that if the court orders that don't forcefully have sex with your wife, the court cannot come to the bedroom. So how will the court enforce the order? I think we will come to that.
Yeah.
But
then there are other aspects, which is trying to hide property the person has material interest in. So you have a car you bought together, you both need to use the car, and probably because of the situation, you probably take the victim's car, hides it, just trying to deprive the person of the use of that property.
Even with respect to feeding, basic food and water,
Necessities.
it is a basic human need, but the abuser may try to prevent you from having that. The court can also grant you an order protecting you against that.
So if with this food situation, like I think we should talk about it some more,
necessities of
because
life.
it's very underestimated or underrated. So you have somebody living in your house and you use food as punishment every now and then to probably get them to do things or to punish them for things they've done. So you choose when to give them food, and it's not just depriving them of the meal entirely, it's even reducing the quantity to, and so where the food you are given perhaps is not adequate. That in itself could amount to some kind of violence, domestic violence.
It is.
I think another aspect we could talk about is this use of domestic chattel. So, for instance, you have a kitchen where everybody eats from in the house, and you find out that the abuser would cook and lock up the kitchen and deprive everybody else or the complainant from having access to these essential things to be able to prepare a meal for him or herself. A protection order could, restrain the person or prohibit this person from continuing in that manner.
Yes. Households are suffering, and they feel like they don't have, there's no one there to support them, to protect them. But you do have, if you are constantly being insulted, slapped,
forcibly confined.
Forcibly confined, if they tell you, you know what, Akos, today you've been very naughty, I'm locking you in a room, I'm taking your phone away from you, that's all forms of domestic abuse. And you can't go to court for the court to protect you.
We have to acknowledge that sometimes there are challenges, and that's why most of the domestic violence are hidden. There are challenges. The person is looking at what will happen after the whole conundrum, going to court and seeking an order and all that. What happens thereafter? Because the court is not in the room, the court is not in the domestic setting, it's you and the person. So if you narrow it down to this house help situation, most of the time they are very vulnerable. Vulnerable in the sense that, where does she even have the guts, he or she have the guts to even go to the police or to the court and say, I'm taking my madam or my this into court for them to protect her within that domestic setting is normally very challenging. But it is something that has to be done, even if the domestic setting in this situation must break.
I think it's more particularly problematic with the house help and bosses situation because it also is an employment relationship.
Yes.
So essentially, if you want to do this, you risk losing your job. Right after.
But then also a husband and wife. If I report my husband, I run the risk of him leaving me. The entire family will think I'm a joke. The world will just mock me. But then that is why we actually need to stop looking at what everyone will say and start doing what is right for you. So if the court is there and the court wants to protect you, I would advise you to go to court and seek that protection. And even if the order is granted to protect you and the person seeks to continue doing that act, doing the things that contravene what the court says you shouldn't do, then the person has committed an offense and can go to jail.
Great. This is a great time to listen to the Vox Pop that came in. We sampled people's opinion on the streets regarding this topic. Let's take a listen, and then we can continue with the scope of the protection order.
The law can allow somebody who has been violent against another person to talk to the person, just that the person should have, the victim should have protection. Unless the victim is traumatized, then the person cannot be allowed to talk to the person. Probably if somebody has been raped by another person, the person's trauma, the way the person will be feeling at the moment may not permit the person to have the confidence to talk to the person who raped him or her. It even puts fear in the person sometimes. So I think that depending on the situation and depending on the person's feeling or the person's will, you can talk to the person.
For me, I don't think there should be any law that will stop people from interacting with those that they have harmed them or they have had a fight with them, because I think this will help to create an opportunity for a new relationship. So if there is a law for that one, I think it should be a law that will rather bind them, not to separate them.
I think the law should stop someone who has been violent against you, because the tendency for tempers to flare up and rise anytime they meet this person is high. I don't think it's advisable for the law to permit such people meeting anywhere.
I don't think the law should stop someone from interacting with people they've been violent against, because something triggered them to do what they did. So probably the person they were violent towards or against did something to them that made them do what they did to them. So I think people change. So if I've been violent towards you once, doesn't mean I'll always be violent towards you.
Things do happen. Assuming one has violated his wife, why would you just separate them? Or maybe I've just met somebody. After the violation, who knows, we could be very close. Yeah, we could be very close. So I wouldn't say the law should separate one from another because she has been violated or something.
I think the law should stop people who have been violent against someone, because the person has the tendency to be violent again.
The law should stop people who violate people from getting close to them, because you are not sure that the person is safe with that person, because once the person has been able to violate the person, the other one, it can be done for the second time, and you can't judge or you can't predict the person's actions the next time. So I feel it's the best for you to prevent the person from getting close to the violated person.
So I know protection orders are just like restraining orders, where people are asked to stay away from properties or people they've been violent against.
So the protection orders is to restrain people, or let me say violent people, from getting closer to their victims. This is in a case where, just like what I said, this is in a case where the person doesn't want to. If the victim would love to hear the person who violated his or her rights, then that's fine. But then if the victim doesn't, then there are laws there to protect the victim. Or even if the victim wants to, there are laws that tell maybe the person is not supposed to get so close to the victim, the person is not supposed to touch the victim, and all these stuff. That's what I know about the protection orders.
After listening to the people you could see that most of them understand the orders, actually, protection orders. Some even make reference to other names that are given to them in other jurisdictions. Restraining orders. That was impressive. But if we discuss something about where you are in a situation, you are abused, you have laid a complaint, and your fear is losing what is more dear to you than the harm caused to you. It could be the husband, it could be a boyfriend, unfortunately. it could be a car, it could be something. The court still gives opportunity where it is not aggravated, even where it is going on in court. The court can order that you be reconciled. If the court sees that, oh, the situation is such that you can still be reconciled and live together in the same domestic setting. And also, the court can ask the two of you to go for reconciliation, for counseling. One of you or both of you to go for counseling. And so the prospect of living together is not all loss when you go to court for protection orders. Now, where do we get to where the court can now say, oh, go and settle, go then appoint a mediator, an amicable settler to settle between you. Now, you could see that when an order is made, it has a binding force. And if you breach a court order, it has a consequence. In this case, when the court makes an order and you breach it, don't beat her and you still go ahead and beat her, there is a consequence to it, which is that you may be liable on conviction to a fine or imprisonment not less than 1 month or not more than 2 years. And you can imagine leaving your husband or leaving your wife for the prison for 2 years. When that happens, and both of you are in court to battle that out, and the court sees that no, the thing is not being aggravated. Remember, most of us, when the law begins to take a toll on us, we become humble, we regret, and see that no, we shouldn't have taken this course of action. When the judge sees that, he can ask you to go for settlement, and he can appoint someone to do that settlement for you.
I wonder, why reconcile with somebody who is violent to you, and the record is there, and what if one day it just gets worse and then you end up dead?
I think a couple of them said they are against the protection orders because they want a new form of relationship between the parties. But what about those who have lost their lives to domestic violence?
Yes,
exactly.
But another thing we have to assure them is that it's not everything the court can do. The court cannot compel a good relationship between you. At a point, you have to realize that it is either death or separation. So if you don't get to that point and you think, oh, the court has a magic wand to diffuse all the tension between you and forcefully bring you together amicably, it won't happen. But of course, when the court sees that, well, when we say not aggravated, it means it's not seeing prospects of reprisals.
Especially armed with the social inquiry report.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And before I forget, I spoke about how now the court enforces the order. You see, if the court makes an order, for instance, that don't have sex forcefully with her, I mean, it can be him, in my opinion. So don't have sex.
Well, but that is possible.
It's very possible.
Well, I mean, I said in my opinion, so if it's the other opinion, they can. So but the court is not in the bedroom to monitor. So how do we, and so many other orders, so how does the law ensure that the order is complied with? And this is where the court has the power to appoint a social worker, a social welfare person, call them probation officers. They will now go visit you, monitor the situation, and report back to court. So for the court to have a continuous assessment of the situation between you. So it's not, the court doesn't leave you to be on your own with the order. The court still go further to take steps to ensure that the order is complied with. And so if you don't get what you want, but you still have yourself.
We haven't fully exhausted what the types of protection orders are, or the variations, but once again it's time for a commercial break. We'll go quickly. When we return, we have some questions coming in through our social media handles. We'll try to answer them, and then we go on to discuss further some of the examples of some of these protection orders that the courts normally make. Stick with us. This is still Law Express. We'll be right back.
My mother passed on to me an age-old moisturizing secret handed down from generation to generation. Shea butter has been and still remains the ultimate and trusted natural product for the skin. It is safe for all, including newborns. I use Violon Shea butter products for my hair and skin and for all my children right from birth. Violon Shea butter is an amazing diaper cream. I love my family. That is why I trust only Violon Shea butter products for our skincare needs.
Violon Shea Butter. Feed your skin right.
Good evening, Noella and your co-panelists. My name is Sally from Abeka. My landlord and I dated for some time. We all live in the same premises. I broke up with him when I found out that he was cheating on me. However, this man won't let me be. He constantly knocks on my door at odd hours. And when my new boyfriend is around, he comes to my end of the house singing just to disturb our peace. And sometimes he attempts to send him away. He keeps following me all over the place, sometimes even to a point where he follows me to the edge of the township. Can I get a restraining order in this instant to stop him from following me around?
If I understand, the tenant and the landlord live together. So yes, by living together, there is a domestic relationship. And basically what he's doing is harassing you. Coming to your house when you're with your boyfriend, singing, whistling, maybe if he even gets an idea that there's something going on between you, he'll be throwing things at your window like, hey, I'm still around, I'm the owner of this house. I think yes, in that instance, if you live together, you can go to court for a protection order to prohibit him from doing what he's doing.
So this is a landlord who owns his house. He has some rights to most of the space. So depending on the complaint, if the landlord is intruding into your space where you have paid for, if your boyfriend comes or your husband comes and you are in your room which you rented, I think the order can restrain your landlord from getting close to that space, or at least intruding by way of sound or by way of any way that will discomfort you in that space.
Yeah.
But apart from that, we should also acknowledge that this is his house and he has a right to. So it is a thin line that has to be drawn.
Yeah.
So the court, the order, your complaint has to be very specific, and the order has to be very specific. But given the context, I mean, definitely, if the hissing and the shouting and the singing is occasioned by what you are doing with your intimate friend in that confinement, then of course an order can be made to restrain it.
First of all, my opinion is that we need to establish whether or not there is a domestic relationship, and I see it in two ways. First, you were in an intimate relationship with this person, which definitely falls within, on all fours with, you know, what a domestic relationship is. He's your ex-boyfriend, and so yes, there is that domestic relationship ongoing. Then there's a second layer of the domestic relationship. You both live in the same environment or the same house. Then now the issue is that he's harassing you. She says that as she's walking around the house, he's following her everywhere. So the question is it reasonable? Was this something that was happening before? And even if it was before, then you would have liked it and consented. Now this is a different, it's unwanted, and it's clearly disturbing her. So I think that she has, she can go and then apply for some protection order against this landlord. And to a large extent, I was agreeing with Osman to the landlord-tenant dynamic. You see, he's allowed to inspect the place, of course, but there are parameters within which he can do that.
Of course.
He needs to give you prior notice and all of that. He might quickly say, oh, it's just to check to be sure that the house is good. That's why I walk around.
But where he's invading her private space, that is harassment.
Absolutely,
He is
yeah.
harassing her. And you did say consent. Did she agree to it before? Right now, she does not agree to it. She does not want him following her. She does not want him knocking at her door when she has a visitor. And usually in these agreements, you have to give a reasonable notice that you are coming to the house. So I think that, yes, as everyone has said, we have established a domestic relationship between them, and she can't go to court for a protection order against him.
Yeah.
My husband has been abusing me sexually. He has sex with me anywhere and anyhow. Sometimes he ties my hands and spanks me so hard and has sex with me more than 6 times a day. Not a single day passes by without sex. I feel so abused and empty. Sometimes we'll be in church and you force me out to the washroom and have sex with me. I'm lost in myself and I feel so useless. Can I get a court order to restrain him from abusing me sexually?
It's obviously, I can see it falls within domestic violence and requires an order. But you see, it depends on, I haven't seen clearly the aspect where she emphasized a dislike for it.
She says he's abusing her.
She feels so empty.
Yeah.
So it means definitely she doesn't like it. And I think the court can grant a protection order, but as we always say, this is a marriage, and so mostly the sex times and intimate relationship are not defined. But if you find that you don't like it, it's excessive, and you see, excessive is also relative. If it is excessive to you, but it is normal, it will now come to the reasonable expectation or reasonable expectation of society or at the court to find out whether this is in excess of what is expected in an ordinary marital relationship. I think you are being an
apologist in this situation.
No,
First of all, it's not about excessive sex.
Yes, this is. She's complaining about sex everywhere, anytime, and she feels so empty.
She says he ties her up,
spanks her up,
and she feels abused.
Yeah, she feels abused.
So the fixation is on the abuse bit.
Yeah, definitely it's
not frequency of sex. In my opinion, I just think that
it's all put together. Actually, it's all put together.
The frequency is her challenge.
Yeah, no, the frequency and the manner, and even where.
So, clearly, the law prevents people from engaging in sexual conduct that abuses, humiliates, degrades somebody, or violates a person's sexual integrity.
Correct.
Clearly, she feels violated.
Yes.
And yes, it's a marriage. He might have some rights, to have his sexual satisfaction from his spouse.
Yes.
But I think that she has to consent to the manner and the frequency and everything else.
Yes.
And clearly this is a case where she already feels abused, and I am thinking that it probably is already affecting her emotionally and psychologically, and that's why she talks about feeling empty.
My name is Ajay Boatin from Pokwase. Under what circumstance can a person apply for a restraining order or protection order for another person who is not interested to pursue the matter?
For another person to make an application to the court for a protection order to protect another person, the conditions are these. For instance, if the person is a minor, is being subjected to some form of abuse, but he or she is a minor. Minor here means you are a child. You are not an adult. And so you don't have the capacity to even apply for a protection order. In that case, your next of friend, who could be your guardian or your parent, can make the application to protect you. Or if you are that kind, you are not mentally sound as to be able to know the effect of what is happening to you. And while you go through pain and suffering, you think it's enjoyment. It's a mental disorder. And so anybody who is your guardian or who is related to you can make that application to the court for the court to protect you from whatever you are going through. But apart from these and others we have not readily thought of.
Probably the aged.
The aged, of course. The person is so old and senile. And so cannot even if he wants to, he can't. It can be done for and on behalf of that person. But if the person is a full adult with all his faculties working, it's not possible for you to go and apply for an order for that person, especially if the person doesn't consent to it. That's my opinion.
But it's important to state that with domestic violence, people in the neighborhood, people who know about the situation, can report to the police. So perhaps where the police prosecution is ongoing and the proceedings are ongoing and the judge sees that, look, there's a need to protect this person, the judge on his own or her own can order protection orders pending the final determination of, whatever charge has been brought against this person.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Most of the actions that constitute domestic violence can also be offenses under the Criminal Act. And so if the law enforcer sees you doing that, it will not matter to him whether the person consents or not. It's an offense, and he can arrest the perpetrator and take him through the criminal proceedings.
We could never fully exhaust this discussion and the instances that domestic violence presents and how protection orders will come up and the different types of protection orders that could be made. Because the truth is, the court looks at the circumstance and sees what order best suits the situation to protect the victim. But in the end, it is important to let our viewers know that doing an act which the court considers not to be in the best interest of another person will result in the court having to intervene, and sometimes it could come in the form of protection orders. It's been a great conversation today. Thank you for staying with us on Law Express. You've been listening to Nuella Seidu and my co-panelists, Osman Alhassan, who is a private legal practitioner, and another private legal practitioner, Joyce Franklin Ado. Thank you so much for joining me today, and thank you for staying with us all through. This has been Law Express. So same time next week. Goodbye.